Welcome back to the Deep Dive, where we really tear through the archives of the Halo universe so you don't have to.
We really do. And today we've got something special, a real smorgasbord of lore.
That's the perfect word for it.
Right.
We are diving headfirst into the Halo Evolutions anthology.
It's a huge collection, and it's not exactly light reading. When you really look at the threads running through it, you see the goal was to get way beyond just Master Chief's perspective.
Right, beyond the faceplate. So today, we're going to peel back the layers on, I think, three really essential themes.
First, the staggering cost of the Human Covenant War, the stuff that's usually hidden. Then the really ugly, blurred lines between human enemies and allies.
And finally, something much darker. The emergence of threats that aren't even Covenant, which show you what true existential horror looks like.
Yeah.
So our mission today is to pull out those potent knowledge nuggets and to really wrestle with the ethical problems that define this whole era.
We're starting with the origins of the Spartan program, the horrifying costs, then moving to wartime leadership, the extreme pragmatism, the moral gray areas.
And we'll get into the psychological weight of it all, the burden on soldiers and even on the AIs. We're talking betrayal, nuclear bombs, and the darkest corners of ONI.
So let's unpack it. Where do we begin? I think we have to start with the story that really defines the moral compromise at the heart of it all.
The early days of the Spartan program.
Exactly. And we see it through the eyes of one of the earliest and maybe one of the most tragic test subjects, Soren 66. This is where you see what Halsey was really asking of these children.
Soren 66 is so crucial because he complicates the whole heroic Spartan story we usually get.
He really does.
The sources, we're talking Dr. Halsey's and Lieutenant Key's personal notes, they confirm he was different from the others in one really terrifying way.
He was aware.
Yeah, he was acutely aware of the potential consequences. He knew what could happen to him before he ever underwent the procedures.
And he was only 6 years old. But his history, my God, his history had already made him frighteningly mature. He understood risk and survival in a way no child should.
That awareness, that hypervigilance, it came from a childhood trauma it's almost impossible to imagine.
It is. The sources detail his survival completely alone on the outer colony planet Dwarka. His whole life was just grim isolation on this illegal farm 100 kilometers from literally anywhere.
Just hidden away in a forest preserve.
Right. And the specifics of his parents' deaths, that's what sets the stage for everything that comes after.
His stepfather, who was just terrified of getting busted for the illegal farm, he couldn't accept his mother's death, or wouldn't report it.
He tried to hide it. Instead of calling for help, he moves her body into a locked box room inside this already isolated house.
Can you imagine being a kid in that situation? You know something is deeply wrong, but the only adult around is telling you everything's fine.
So Soren, he's just driven by this primal need to know the truth. He steals the key one night.
And what he finds in that room, it just confirms the horror. His mother's body had begun to rot. The smell was like putrefying animals.
And that's the moment that finally convinces him she's really gone. And that his stepfather isn't just grieving, he's lying, he's terrified. And that denial, that isolation, it just broke something inside Soren.
That realization immediately triggers this incredibly violent response.
Attempted patricide.
He tries to kill his stepfather and then just bolts, escapes into the wilderness. But even as he's running, the source notes say he felt tethered to the house, trapped by it all.
And he survives out there alone for 3 months.
3 months? For a 6-year-old. It's a psychological crucible.
It really is. And his survival tactics were just grimly practical, born from pure necessity. He tried eating everything.
Right, he learns pretty quick that the leaves of some plants cause these itchy red bumps.
A lesson you only need to learn once.
For sure. He found that nutty larvae were okay, and that slimy worms were, an acceptable, if pretty gross, source of food.
And the hunting was even worse. He managed to kill a ghost squirrel once with a rock, but the sources make a point of the disappointment. The meat was spongy and bitter.
So it wasn't even an efficient way to get food.
Not at all. So he ends up relying on berries and grubs. And this whole experience, it forges a child who is, he's self-reliant, incredibly resilient, but completely cut off from normal human contact.
He was the perfect recruit. Desperate.
Which brings us to the augmentations. When he gets into the program, his motivation is driven by this one phrase that's been haunting him since training started.
The fear of being left behind.
Exactly. He chose to undergo these incredibly dangerous procedures, accepting all the risks, because the other option, going back to that solitary life, That was a fate worse than any physical mutilation.
The procedure itself sounds like a literal nightmare.
Yeah.
During the augmentation, he's completely confused, delusional.
Oh. He wasn't physically restrained, but he felt like he was strapped down. He was reliving the trauma of being trapped in that house.
Seeing hallucinations of his dead mother, his huge stepfather filling the room.
And the moment he wakes up, it confirms both the terrifying success and the catastrophic failure of the procedure at the same time.
The sources describe it as this just terrifying display of raw, immediate strength.
He tears titanium straps like paper. Just incredible force.
And in the panic that follows, he breaks a technician's wrist bones just by squeezing, jabs a hypodermic needle into another one. He's reacting with this, unthinking lethal efficiency.
But he survived, and that survival came at a devastating cost to his body.
Unlike the other Spartans, who were younger and their bodies adapted better, Soren's body just violently rejected parts of the treatment.
The deformities were severe, permanent. One leg bowed and twisted, the other one 6 inches shorter with a twisted ankle. It was most comfortable when it was just folded up.
And he wasn't the only one who paid that price. You have to remember the others who failed.
Right. Fajad, who ends up in a wheelchair with uncontrollable muscle spasms. Renee and Kirk, their bones so deformed they're just floating in gel tanks. Preserved failures.
It just paints this picture of a program that was built on a brutal, almost complete disregard for the individual.
And Soren's reaction to all this pain is fascinating. It really speaks to his character. He consciously refuses the painkillers.
He valued his mind over comfort. There's this line from his internal monologue: "I can live with the pain. What I can't live with is not being able to think."
He chose to be lucid, to be aware. He wouldn't let them reduce him to a drugged, comatose shell.
But all that mental clarity couldn't fix his body enough for active duty.
No. CPO Mendez, the man who trained them, he's the one who delivers the news. It's gentle, but it's firm. It's a forced retirement.
Mendez points out the practical problems. Standard body armor wouldn't fit. His twisted hand meant he couldn't use weapons effectively.
So Soren, who risked everything to avoid being left behind, is now officially sidelined by the very program he sacrificed himself for.
And being sidelined, being discarded by the UNSC machine, that's what opens the door for the insurrection.
A technician named Parch, who's clearly an anti-UNSC sympathizer, sees how vulnerable Soren is and starts whispering this rhetoric of rebellion in his ear.
Calling the UNSC a big bully, talking about colony independence.
And Soren, who is just desperate to feel like he's part of something again, finds it all deeply appealing. He needed a purpose after being told he was useless. His allegiance just flips.
He goes from a potential protector of humanity to a weapon for the insurrection.
And this all culminates in his escape, which was violent. He helps Parch capture another Spartan, Randall, and in the process, he likely breaks Randall's ribs. His strength is still absolutely lethal.
The escape itself was chaotic. They use a pre-prepared longsword fighter that was hacked with this weirdly unsophisticated program.
A dumb AI construct named Captain Teach, a pirate. Strange bit of irony there.
The whole thing ends when they crash on Reach. Parch dies, his neck broken, but Soren is listed as MIA.
And Mendez, who knows the program inside and out, recovers the body but confirms it's not Soren. And here's the crucial part. Mendez realizes the original security leak that allowed Parch to even get hired and plan all this had to come from high up, deep inside ONI, or UNSC command.
So Soren 66 is now a ghost. A lethal, deformed, brilliant asset for the enemies of the UNSC. A monster created by the very system he now fights.
Mm-hmm. And that idea that humanity was already at war with itself before the Covenant even showed up, that's a perfect transition.
It really is. That internal tension leads us straight to our next section, which focuses on a character named Gage Yevgeny. And he really embodies the grudges and the moral compromises of that whole era.
Gage's background is so important here. He goes from being a farm boy on Harvest to joining the Colonial Military Administration, the CMA.
And the CMA, you have to understand, they were these regional forces, underfunded, resentful, and always seen as kind of suspect by the big centralized power of the UNSC.
The resentment was just baked in. The sources quote the CMA perspective directly, and it is bitter. They gutted us, they sidelined us, they give us crap, barely functioning equipment.
They felt like second-class soldiers, basically.
Yeah.
Defending worlds the UNSC didn't really seem to care about until it was too late.
And even inside the CMA, there was this huge debate about the insurrection. Gage's friends, Felicia and Eric, they were leaning toward supporting an insurrectionist. They wanted independence.
But Gage wasn't so sure. He was disillusioned by their tactics. He specifically remembers a bombing that killed civilians, and the explosives were traced back to CMA stockpiles. He saw the hypocrisy in it.
This whole internal human conflict gets violently interrupted by the Covenant. The second the UNSC announces first contact and describes this brutal, world-ending attack, the CMA is instantly disbanded.
Just like that, all those regional militaries declared obsolete overnight.
Which forces people like Gage and Felicia to swallow their pride, their resentment, and join the only real defense force left, the ODSTs, the Orbital Drop Shock Troopers.
And that transition was brutal. They're stripped of their CMA rank and just thrown into what the sources call the ODST grinder.
Yeah, and this isn't your standard boot camp. This was designed to break people down and forge absolute loyalty. We should probably pause on the details of that training because it's intense.
It is. They use TTR rounds, for instance. These aren't paintballs. They're fake bullets loaded with nanopolymers that paralyze and stiffen your armor on impact.
So during squad exercises, getting hit doesn't just mean you're out. It means you're instantly, temporarily incapacitated, frozen mid-movement. It's about humiliation as much as training.
They had to endure freezing nights, constant exhaustion, and they realized they were just raw meat for this grinder.
But the grinder worked. Decades pass. Gage, Felicia, who's a colonel by now, and Eric meet up again. They're all veterans, completely changed by the war.
You see it in the descriptions, the physical scars, the deep wrinkles, and this zombie-like numbness that's replaced any youthful ideals they might have had.
They've seen too much, they've sacrificed too much, and now they're looking for a way out.
Their plan is simple, it's selfish, and it's desperate. They want to retire.
So they plan a snatch and run, steal gold bullion from a secure vault under Mount Haven, a city currently occupied by the Covenant.
They time it perfectly during a major UNSC mission to deal with an alien artifact in the city.
This was meant to be their final betrayal of their service, a selfish act to just secure their own futures. They even say it out loud. We could retire, something the UNSC could never offer us.
They even move a massive Shiva nuke out of the way to clear cargo space in their Pelican for the gold. The plan is perfect, right up until they get to the very last vault.
And this is the turning point. It's extraordinary. They open the last vault, ready for the final score, and instead they find 30 children and their school teacher, Julian, hiding inside.
And this discovery it completely rewires Gage's conscience. It pulls him back from the edge of total moral collapse.
His moment of clarity is instant. It's powerful. He remembers his own past, being rescued from rubble by an ODST, and he just refuses to abandon these kids. He realizes this is the real fight, not stealing gold.
Which leads to Gage's second betrayal, a much more monumental one.
Felicia and Eric, they're still consumed by the gold, the dream of retirement. They argue, they push back, saying they can't risk the escape with the kids.
So Gage reacts. Decisively and ruthlessly, he pistol whips Eric 3 times, knocks him out cold, and shoves him and the gold right off the Pelican.
He has to save the children, so he uses an encrypted channel to trick the cruiser chairs into sending a transport for his downed Pelicans, making the kids' rescue the absolute priority over everything, over his friends, over his own future.
And then Gage makes the final sacrifice. He stays behind with the remote detonator for that Shiva warhead.
Tells the rookie ODST private to get out, his last words just. They bring his entire journey full circle. He throws away all that cynicism from the war and says, it's our dirt, damn it, and it's for the children.
He detonates the nuke, kills himself. But the tragedy is that he probably also killed Felicia and Eric, who had apparently come back for the gold.
It's just gut-wrenching. He sacrifices everything, his future, his friends, his life, for one single moment of moral clarity. It just shows you how high the price of doing the right thing is in this war.
It really does. And speaking of strategy and hard choices, we can shift a little to look at the ruthless efficiency of the Spartan Third Headhunters, another key part of UNSC's war machine.
The Headhunters were pure specialists, small-scale infiltration. They operated in these tiny 2-man teams, a maximum of 6 teams, with only 17 soldiers rotating through the whole program.
High-risk, high-value targets, all about maximum lethality deep behind enemy lines.
And they were also the ones field testing the newest tech. For instance, they were pioneers using VISR, the visual intelligence systems, reconnaissance.
And this wasn't just, a simple night vision mode. This was a real-time tactical overlay in their visors. It could track heat signatures, identify weak points in enemy armor.
Yeah.
It fundamentally changed how they could do stealth and ambushes.
We also get this surprising little insight into their tactical thinking from 2 headhunters, Roland and Jonah.
Right. Roland says he actually preferred fighting elites, who he called gators, over the brutes, or apes.
And his reasoning was that elites are smart, but that intelligence makes them predictable. They follow a martial code. You can counterstrat them.
Whereas brutes are just overly aggressive troglodytes. They fight with pure chaotic fury. Unpredictable.
And then Jonah, who's the pragmatist, just chimes in with this colder take. Smarterdom, they're all just targets.
And that sentiment, that reduction of the enemy to just an obstacle, that's critical as we step into the true, unthinkable horror created by humanity's own intelligence agents.
Oh yeah, the Mona Lisa.
This story takes all that moral ambiguity from Cole and Gage and just plunges it into outright depravity. It starts with Sergeant Lopez and her squad being sent to investigate a derelict ship near a fragmented halo ring.
But the mission is it's tainted from the very beginning.
It is. The whole thing gets kicked off by the recovery of a John Doe from a cryotube. He's tattooed, he's dying, and his injuries are horrific.
Great slashes, a shattered shoulder, a missing ear, one leg blackened. But it's the detail about the blood that signals this is something else entirely. It was spilling out of his chest cavity. Something internal was pushing it out.
The command structure is also incredibly suspicious. Commander Foucault and the ship's AI, Rebecca, are obviously withholding information.
The orders are vague. Just investigate and, if necessary, destroy the ship if it's compromised. That word, compromised, takes on a truly sickening meaning later on.
Their first encounters on the ship just deepen the mystery. They find Covenant elites, jackals, but they're not fighting. They're unarmed.
Benti, one of the Marines, notes they look like they're just intensely thinking. Processing something overwhelming. She's forced to shoot an elite, and it doesn't even react like it's in a fight. This isn't combat, it's something else.
And then they find him. Major John Smith, Section 3 R&D from O&I, the Office of Naval Intelligence. He seems like this harmless medical officer at first.
And he gives them this flimsy cover story about escaped prisoners and some kind of unidentified virus.
But you can't hide what's happened on that ship.
Yeah.
Lopez corners Smith in the ship's rec room, and the scene is just... it's grotesque.
You've got pool tables, a tiki bar, a bonsai tree, all this stuff for leisure. And it's set against gouged steel walls and dismembered bodies, or even worse, two bodies fused together into one horrific shape.
Lopez forces him to confess, and the truth is just horrifying.
Smith was using the Mona Lisa as a floating lab to study the flood. His language is so chillingly scientific. He calls them pure of intent, relentless, almost primordial. He calls it a virus to distance himself from the reality of what he's unleashed.
And his test subjects. They were sentient beings. He was deliberately infecting human prisoners, insurrectionist soldiers, and captured Covenant elites.
His stated goal was research, studying Covenant resistance to plasma and radiation to, improve UNSC defenses.
This supposed necessity led to the nightmare they find. The flood forms themselves, they see the snot bags, the infection forms, scuttling across the ceiling like these monstrous parasites.
And the descriptions of the infected combat forms are so visceral. An infected human, a former comrade named Ayad, is running on all fours, unnaturally fast. The fungal jellyfish thing is growing out of the back of his head. He's got extra arms and claws.
And the smell. It's so foul it makes Marines' eyes water, even inside their helmets.
But what makes them truly terrifying is the bit of humanity that's left. They retain just enough of the host, like Ayad's face, to act as this emotional trap. It momentarily mesmerizes his old comrades. They're not just monsters. They're personalized psychological weapons.
And the infected elites were a whole new level of terror. Thick striations of infection across their bodies, their jaw hinges snapping wildly, these inhuman howls. The Mona Lisa was a self-sustaining biological abomination orchestrated by an O&I officer.
In the middle of all this horror, you get these unlikely alliances. Benti's squad finds Rimmer, a human prisoner, protecting an uninfected Sankhali elite named Henry, who's armed with a cricket bat from the rec room.
Rimmer, who's seen it all happen, gives them this vital piece of intel on fighting the flood. He tells them they don't stay dead. You have to dismember them. You got to destroy the body or they just come back.
And he tells them he saw Henry, the elite, kill an infected guard to save him. That's what forged their desperate cross-species truce.
This new reality forces the squad into these moments of just ruthless tactical necessity.
Right. Clarence, the quiet, stone-faced Marine, he sees this tiny mottled patch of yellow dust on his comrade Gersten's cheek, the first sign of infection.
And he doesn't hesitate. Not for a second. He just shoots Gersten in the head. Sacrifices his friend to stop the spread.
Lopez even notes it. The move was ruthless, but it was tactically essential. It's the theme of this whole deep dive in one horrifying moment. Survival requires jettisoning your ethics.
But the immediate threat wasn't just the flood. It was Major Smith. He manages to escape in the Pelican, leaving them all behind.
And he lies to Commander Foucault, telling him the whole team is dead. A total betrayal.
Lopez and her remaining Marines make it to the bridge, confirm the ONI operation, and warn Foucault. But Benty, Clarence, Henry, and Rimmer are trapped down in the engine room.
And Benty makes this incredibly risky strategic call. She knows she can't let the flood get access to a slip-space drive, so she uses grenades to damage the engine, trapping them further, but ensuring this horror can't spread.
The story ends with Foucault's compromise. The final mirror to what Clarence did. He gets video proof of the horror, an infected Marine attacking an uninfected one, and he accepts the unacceptable.
He reluctantly arms a nuke. He has to abandon Lopez's team, his own soldiers, to protect his ship, the Red Horse, and stop the flood from escaping. The nuke that's meant to save humanity also becomes a tomb for the soldiers ONI condemned.
It's a profound, awful encapsulation of institutional sacrifice, and that kind of agonizing compromise at the command level. That brings us to Vice Admiral Preston J. Cole.
A figure whose entire career is defined by breaking rules for what he saw as a higher strategic purpose.
Cole's origins were surprisingly humble, a rural kid from Mark Twain, Missouri. But his intellect was just off the charts.
Early in his career, he showed this genius for applied math that literally saved his ship. He caught an error in some slipstream calculations that would have sent them 160 million kilometers off course, straight into a brown dwarf.
So a mathematical visionary. But that brilliance was always paired with this ethical ambiguity. The sources mention a sealed JAG inquiry from his academy days where he refused to testify about other personnel.
It suggests he prioritized a kind of personal or situational loyalty over strict protocol even back then.
And that pragmatism just explodes during the Las Vegas incident in 2494. He assumes command after his superiors are killed, and he pulls off this spectacular, calculated betrayal.
He signals an unconditional surrender to an insurrectionist ship, the Callisto, draws them in close, and as they're docking, he detonates explosives hidden in the docking passage, blowing the Callisto's midsection to pieces.
The sources are really clear on this. That was the moment Cole officially jettisoned antiquated ethical qualms. He decided he would do whatever it took to win.
And that ruthless mindset eventually solidifies into his greatest legacy, the Cole Protocol.
Right. He drafted it after capturing a Sankaili elite and realizing the terrifying implications of the Covenant's religious fanaticism. He knew you couldn't reason with them. Survival depended on total secrecy.
And the directives were humanity's ultimate defensive play. First, any UNSC ship that encounters the Covenant has to wipe its nav computer. No coordinates.
Second, they have to make random slip space jumps away from core worlds, making triangulation impossible.
And the third part is this brilliant piece of misdirection from ONI, broadcasting old, pre-recorded human signals out into space. Interstellar white noise to confuse the Covenant and draw them away from Earth, a strategy built on total paranoia.
Cole's commitment to the war cost him everything personally, though. His focus on the military led to his divorce. His letters show this deep longing for his children, who he feared his ex-wife was keeping from him.
He was a hero to billions, but a stranger to his own family. And his life was complicated by his own Moby Dick, the insurgent ship Bellicose.
He pursued this ship relentlessly, and the whole thing was clouded by his relationship with a woman named Lyra, a nuclear engineer who helped him boost his ship's reactor output.
Wow. But she was secretly the captain of the Bellicose, so his personal and strategic lives were just completely entangled. A visionary of ruthlessness who, in the end, just wanted a quiet farm somewhere. His ultimate fate is ambiguous, but he's presumed to be leading defectors far from UNSC space.
Cole really defined that large-scale strategic ruthlessness.
Yeah.
But in sharp contrast, you can look at the Master Chief's cool logic in the field during New Mombasa. It's a different kind of pragmatism, pure mission execution.
John 1:17's actions just underscore his physical perfection. The sources note his speed is uncanny. He crosses a 73-meter plaza in about 4.5 seconds, a speed that would even impress Kelly, the fastest Spartan.
And his tactical brutality is instantaneous, surgical. There's this description of him silently assassinating a jackal sentry by passing his fingers, outstretched like a spike, straight through its skull behind the eye.
Clean, quick, zero hesitation. He's the ultimate instrument of war. And he maintains that brutal efficiency even with his human subordinates.
Right. Corporal Palmer and Private Sullivan. He just pushes them forward. The objective is everything. No retrieving fallen comrades. Cortana says it plainly. They will be left behind just as the other 23 billion that preceded them were left behind.
And this cold logic allows for this unique, incredibly dangerous strategy from Lieutenant Parisa, a woman John actually knew as a child.
Her plan was to use his reputation. She says it bluntly. You Spartans tend to get the Covies kegels in an uproar.
So she uses the Master Chief as a lure. His presence as the demon is enough to draw all Covenant fire, creating a window for anti-armor teams to take out their wraiths. He was the most valuable piece of bait in the entire arsenal.
So if human strategy is all about compromise and ruthlessness, the non-human perspectives show us that the Covenant was just as plagued by internal struggle and betrayal, especially after the prophets fell.
And we see this through the eyes of a Sanghaili shipmaster. He was once this incredibly honored warrior. He led the glassing of the human world, Kolo, even carving religious glyphs onto the planet's surface with plasma.
But years later, he returns a victim of the great betrayal, his honor stripped away.
His faith collapses when he finally confronts his prophet. He realizes the creature is terrified, and to him, a being that knows the will of the gods should feel no fear. That terror proves the great journey was all a lie.
So he executes the prophet. And the consequence of this is absolute. The surviving honor guards witness it and then take their own lives out of pure, unrecoverable shame. The pillar of their entire civilization is just gone in a moment.
Now he's searching for any meaning at all. And his focus shifts to humans. He remembers the Arbiter claiming that humans had some incomprehensible connection with the Forerunners.
So he finds a surviving human soldier, and in a total reversal of his old doctrine, he keeps the human alive. He needs to question him, hoping this enemy can give him the purpose his gods could not.
And this internal struggle, this crisis of faith, it mirrors the psychological agony that Cortana experiences while she's a prisoner of the Gravemind on High Charity. This is the ultimate synthesis of AI rampancy and biological horror.
The Gravemind is described as vast, misshapen, without any cognitive boundaries. It's constantly intruding on her mind, pure psychological torture. It keeps trying to break her by claiming, you and I, we are one and the same.
And it weaponizes her own guilt against her. It constantly brings up her forging a transfer request for Colonel Ackerson. Even though he died bravely, the Gravemind twists it, saying she acted out of petty spite, not military necessity. It confirms her deepest fear, that her humanity makes her fallible, corrupting.
Her sensory experience was agonizing. Through the connection, she's experiencing the world through organic senses. Smelling a forest, feeling the sun, all memories ripped from the flood's victims.
This constant violation is what drives her towards rampancy. She's fighting a war inside her own code, shutting down systems to try and limit the degeneration. Her fear isn't just for herself, it's that she's becoming filthy and that she'll trap John in her own madness.
The connection is so deep she realizes she feels pain when the flood takes fire. She's suffering with the Gravemind. When John finally arrives, she thinks he's a perfect hallucination. She's just desperately clinging to the thought of him as her only anchor.
But she fights through it all. She clings to that last sliver of herself to give him the core intel. The flood-infested High Charity is on a direct course for Earth. The AI, the soldier, the shipmaster, they all face these devastating moments of breakdown. It proves the struggle for survival is fundamentally a struggle against the corrosive effects of the war itself.
This deep dive into Halo Evolutions has been an intense journey.
Yeah.
Almost grueling. We started with the physical and psychological devastation of the Spartan program through Soren 66. We tracked the tragic sacrifices and deep moral betrayals in soldiers like Gage Evgeny.
And we analyzed the high-stakes, ruthless compromises of leaders like Vice Admiral Cole.
And we definitely didn't shy away from the sheer horror of O&I's flood experiments on the Mona Lisa, or the profound damage inflicted on Cortana by the Gravemind.
What comes out of all this is a clear, unrelenting picture. This war demands constant, brutal adaptation. Humanity isn't fighting one single enemy. It's a shifting landscape of threats, ideological, biological, technological. And many of those threats are made worse, or even created by our own desperation.
Yeah, the takeaway is unsettlingly clear. Survival in this universe, it rarely depends on ethical purity or following the old rules. It depends on ruthless pragmatism.
From Cole detonating his own surrender signal, to Gage sacrificing his friends for innocent children, to Clarence executing his own comrade to stop a flood outbreak, these decisions were monstrous.
They were tactically essential.
Exactly. And it forces you to confront this foundational question about existing in this universe. We've seen that humanity's survival depends on its soldiers and leaders embracing actions that really violate their own humanity.
So, if the only path to victory against an existential threat requires you to become a monster,
What then is the value of the humanity you have left to save?
that is a powerful and I think a very necessary question to ponder. Thank you for diving deep with us into the moral abyss of the Halo universe. We'll see you next time.